Have you ever seen a moment so pure it made even the coldest hearts melt? A billionaire's mother, elegant, quiet, and forgotten by the noise of her son's empire, met a janitor who could barely afford his next meal. But when their eyes met and his hands began to move in sign language, something extraordinary happened, something that would change not only their lives but the entire company's destiny. Stay till the end, because what he signed that day will remind you that kindness doesn't need a voice, it just needs a heart that listens. The day began like any other in the towering glass headquarters of Marlowe Industries. Employees hurried through the marble lobby, their shoes clicking sharply, their eyes glued to phones and schedules. The billionaire CEO Ethan Marlowe was known for perfection, his time, his image, his empire. But behind his power and control there was something else, something few ever saw. His mother, Margaret Marlowe, a once famous pianist who had lost her hearing years ago after an illness, lived quietly in his mansion. Ethan loved her deeply, but his world was loud, busy, and full of meetings. Hers was silent, lonely, and filled with memories of music she could no longer hear. That morning, Margaret decided to surprise her son by visiting his company for the first time in years. Dressed in a cream coat, her silver hair neatly pinned, she stepped out of the car with her chauffeur's help. But inside the massive lobby she froze. The endless bustle, the fast-talking receptionists, the ringing phones, all of it was chaos without sound. She couldn't hear a word. People looked at her with confusion when she didn't respond. Some whispered, unsure how to help. And then someone approached her. It wasn't a manager or a secretary. It was a man in a faded blue janitor uniform holding a mop. His name was Daniel Reyes. He was 32, quiet, kind, and invisible to most who worked there. Every night he cleaned the offices until dawn, then took the bus to his second job just to keep his sick daughter fed and in school. But today he stopped what he was doing when he saw her trembling slightly, clutching her purse, trying to communicate. Daniel gently placed his mop aside, walked up to her, and smiled. He lifted his hands and began to sign. Her eyes widened, slowly her lips parted in surprise. He signed, "Are you okay, ma'am? Can I help you find someone?" Tears welled in her eyes before she could even respond. For years, no stranger had spoken to her in her language. She signed back, "You know sign language?" He nodded, "My daughter is deaf, I learned for her." Margaret's expression softened into something the busy lobby had never seen, a look of deep human connection. She signed, "That's beautiful, you must be a wonderful father." Daniel smiled shyly. "I try to be, she teaches me patience every day." The front desk staff looked on, stunned. No one had ever seen Mrs. Marlowe smile like that, nor had anyone realized the janitor could sign. Within minutes she was laughing silently, her hands moving gracefully as they conversed about music, life, and loss. She told him how she used to play piano before silence took her world. He told her how his daughter loved to feel vibrations of songs by placing her small hands on the speaker. When Ethan finally came downstairs to greet his mother, he was shocked. There she was, smiling brighter than he'd seen in years, talking animatedly with his janitor. "Mother," he said hesitantly. She turned and signed something quickly. Daniel translated softly, "She says she's proud of you, but she wants to know why your heart seems tired." Ethan blinked, taken aback. "What?" Daniel lowered his eyes respectfully. "She said, your smile doesn't reach your eyes anymore." The room went quiet. For the first time, Ethan looked small, like a boy caught between power and guilt. He thanked Daniel awkwardly, guided his mother upstairs, but the image of the janitor's gentle hands stayed with him all day. That evening, Margaret told Ethan that Daniel reminded her of the world she missed, simple, honest, full of kindness that didn't care about money. She asked Ethan to invite him and his daughter to dinner. Ethan hesitated but agreed. When Daniel arrived that weekend with his little girl, Lily, a bright-eyed, deaf 8-year-old in a worn pink dress, Margaret knelt to greet her. They began signing instantly, laughter lighting up the grand dining room. Ethan watched quietly, feeling something shift inside him. During dinner, Margaret asked Daniel about his dreams. He hesitated, embarrassed, then admitted, "I once wanted to be a teacher for deaf children, but life, it took another path." "Maybe," she signed slowly, "it's not too late." Ethan's eyes met his mother, and for the first time he realized that maybe his empire, his billions, had made him deaf in another way to real people. The next morning he called Daniel into his office. The janitor stood nervously, hat in hand, expecting to be reprimanded. Instead, Ethan handed him an envelope. "This," Ethan said softly, "is a full scholarship for you to study sign language education. You'll still have your job here part-time, but I want you to follow that dream you told my mother about." Daniel was speechless, tears filled his eyes. "Sir, I don't know what to say." Ethan smiled faintly. You already did without saying a word. Months passed. Daniel began studying, often visiting Margaret to practice signing. She became like a grandmother to Lily, teaching her old piano songs through vibrations and rhythm. The three of them shared something rare and quiet: peace. Then one afternoon, during a company event, Margaret asked Ethan to invite Daniel to the stage. The employees whispered, confused, why a janitor was being called up. Ethan took the microphone and said, "Most of you don't know this man, but he taught me the most valuable lesson I've ever learned. My mother may have lost her hearing, but through him she heard love again." Daniel's hands trembled as Margaret stepped forward, took his hands, and began signing publicly for the first time. "You gave me back my voice. You reminded me that silence isn't emptiness, it's another way to listen." People in the audience began crying quietly. Some pulled out their phones, filming the moment. Ethan added, "Starting today, Marlowe Industries is launching a foundation to support hearing-impaired children and parents. And this man, Daniel Reyes, will lead it." The crowd erupted in applause. Daniel looked down, unable to stop his tears. He turned to Margaret and signed slowly, "Thank you for seeing me when no one else did."